already really getting into it and hearing some similarities between the pieces, so that's been really great so far. So I will start with my work at the museum because it's actually how I got into visual art. So in school I studied theater and English and came out kind of tired of theater and wanting something new. So I started an internship at the museum, the New England Aquarium. So that started my progress towards museums, and from there, in 2017, I started at the MIT Small Contemporary Art Gallery, the List, and there I am on the front lines. I'm we call it gallery attendant, so am front lines for the visitors, but and also definitely a lot of the job there is making sure people don't touch the art, but also the main goal is also connecting with the audience and the MIT community, and also we have a lot of international visitors. But it really was there. I came from a place I really more loved kind of classical artwork, so it was actually working there and living, every day with contemporary art that got me into it. So about 2 years into the job, I went back to school for Sustainable International Development, and while I was there, there was at MIT a conference for self-care, and including papers, they also had a call for visual art. So I just had started doing, I think I started with Inktober and went from there, and so that was my first show, and it really kind of brought everything together for me. So I was studying, activism, environmentalism. I also am a bit of a hoarder, so I have a lot of stuff in my house, so it kind of brought all of that together, and that became my visual art practice of using things around my home. Also self-taught, but also don't have a studio but work at home, so that influenced my work a lot too. So coming from theater, also finding unusual materials, cheaper materials, that has remained my practice, kind of focusing on art that can be made with your own materials, but also just more accessible. I like that style and kind of thinking about the accessibility of art, which also comes into play. A lot of my earlier work, but also still today, all of my work, I not only did 3D tangible materials to kind of reuse and recycle items, but also incorporated tangible things and sometimes Braille to kind of push who can interact with my artwork that way. This piece, I also have trouble narrowing down my ideas. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of inspirations. I like to do a lot of part-time jobs to fulfill all my creative needs. And so I usually narrow my focus based on calls for art. So yeah, I love this show and the VA Shadows, bringing together people who work at the museums, because it really is a different experience. And I was kind of looking at that with this, the ups and downs of working every day in the museum and living with the artwork, especially at MIT, or maybe anyone who works in a contemporary art museum. You never know what the show is going to be. Sometimes there's audio, sometimes there's visual, flashing lights. Our most recent one, we were in charge of feeding live animals, caring for them. So you never know what's going to happen. And I was kind of both taking inspiration from working at MIT, thinking about how, even though it's a contemporary art museum, a lot of the time we do include some relation to technology. And I'm also doing research for a sci-fi graphic novel and thinking about consciousness and synapses. So that kind of all came together, thinking about kind of the cycles and the different cycles I go through in a day. You know, there's everything from being inspired by the work to tuning it out, kind of that back and forth constant cycle of creativity, and also the mundane aspect of the work, because you're with this, you know, inspiring work, but you see it all the time, so sometimes you tune it out, sometimes you see something new in it, sometimes you get headaches from it, everything in between. So it's a really interesting cycle that way, and unique job, definitely living with the work that way. So I was kind of thinking of that with this, and also materials-wise, since I do like the accessible materials and cheaper, and I think in my practice it helps me look at anything and think of it, it helps my art practice by thinking of it in terms of like shapes and colors, what things I have can turn into what I'm envisioning. This is working at home. I chose to do air dry clay, and also some more dried acrylic paints I had, penciling them in there, as well as some LED lights. But definitely like, since I work at home, like it to be manageable, and also you know, sustainable and accessible that way. But yeah, if you have any questions.
You mentioned that you're doing research for a sci-fi graphic novel. Is that a piece that you're going to be creating? Or?
Yeah. I'm writing and illustrating. So it's been really interesting, and also working at MIT has helped. I'm going to follow up with a lot of people there. But yeah, I've been delving a lot into, actually I just went to Boscone, if anyone knows that, but there were a bunch of panels about like current science, and yeah, really interesting things are happening, and a lot of things I'm looking at are consciousness, AI, CRISPR, things like that. So consciousness is really interesting. I was thinking about myself and the world around me. There's like things coming out right now about, you know, animal consciousness levels, a lot of new research going on about that. So yeah, brain's consciousness.
Cool, we'll look for the movie adaptation. Sounds great.
Thank you.